Hello! Today I'm making a coat. I was planning to make a cute going out coat this week, then I realized I don't have anywhere to go out to. But what I do need is a coat that I can sit at a table for hours on end at work in that is comfortable but also really warm. So that is what I will be doing this week. I have bought a little thin quilt from Ross and I will be making that into a cozy sitting coat. Here are my supplies. I've got that quilt up in the corner and I've already pulled the bias tape off of it. I'm going to be using that to bind the coat at the end. Use that with my seam ripper. I've got my scissors, some buttons, my pattern pieces, my thimble, my little snip scissors, and some thread. This pattern is the same pattern that I used to make my Slytherin robe, so the same modifications. I'll have that video linked up above. This is the back piece, it's cut on the fold. There's the front pieces. And these are obviously shortened from that robe pattern, but are otherwise the same as I used for the robes. And there's the sleeves. Just going in with those shoulder seams, and since I am not lining this coat in any way, I wanted to bind all of the seams with bias tape, and what I had enough of was this dark blue. I think it works well enough, especially since it's only visible on the inside of the coat. There's that second shoulder seam. And the side seams. This quilt I ended up getting, as you can see, has a solid on one side and the pattern on the inside. I thought that was pretty neat for my purposes. I wanted to use the color on the outside because I wanted a solid rather than a pattern, but I do like that I'm going to get little peaks of the color. For the sleeve, I sewed up the seam, tried it on, decided I wanted the cuff to be narrower, and just went in and adjusted that line. Now I'm binding the edge. Of course, repeated that with the second seam, the second sleeve. Then I have pinned the sleeve into the arm side and I am sewing that in and covering it up with the bias binding. Here I have all of the bias that I pulled off of the quilt, and I'm sewing it into one long piece and ironing those joins flat. Then I'm sewing it to the inside of the coat. I wanted to do a long stitch binding finish on the outside, so it was a design feature, so I'm doing the machine stitch part on the inside of the coat. So I'm just lining it up with the edge, sewing along that crease line. all the way along the neckline, front, and bottom edge. It can be one continuous piece. And then each sleeve needs a little piece too. And then to finish this off, I've taken it from the inside, flipped it to the outside, folded it so that there's a folded edge visible instead of a raw edge, and then I'm doing a long stitch hand binding method. I'm just doing a long running stitch in a slightly contrasting thread, trying not to catch the inside fabric as I go, and that'll just hold it down and look cute. I used a kind of peach thread to kind of contrast the rusty orangey coral color. And I'm going to be doing the same thing along the front, bottom, and neckline. I just didn't want to sit at my desk, so I did that off camera in front of my television. I'm using these big snaps for this coat. I used them a lot when theaters were open and I was using them for costumes, so I know that they will have the strength to hold this coat closed, and I didn't want to have to fiddle with buttonholes through this quilt batting. So I'm just stitching these big old snaps down. I found the position by trying the coat on and making marks with pins where I needed them. And then I'm sewing these big mother of pearl buttons down over the outside where you could see the snap stitching. I'm using the same contrasting thread that I used to sew the binding on. This is purely aesthetic, it just makes the coat look nicer. And pockets, super necessary. So I've just got a square of the same material the coat's made of, and I've bound one edge the same way that I did the whole edging of the coat, and then I went and did a overlock stitch on the rest of the edges, folded it inward so that that's only visible from inside the pocket, pinned it on, and now I'm hand stitching it down with that running top stitch the same way that I bound the coat. Found the position for the pockets the same as the snaps. I tried the coat on, put my hands where I naturally reach for pockets, and made a mark there, in this case with some chalk. And I repeated that for the other pocket, and it's done. And here we have it. As you can see, I've paired it with a sweatshirt, which is how I wear it to work most times. I obviously have a very casual job. This coat is so cozy, guys. I mean, obviously, it's just basically wearing a blanket tent. And it's long enough that when I sit down, it covers my legs. I love it. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw and want to see more, please hit that subscribe button. Helps me out a lot. And I've got a few videos up on the screen for you.